Well, hello. If you're just joining us, I'm Jennifer Lakey. I'm the Executive Director of the American Council for an Energy Efficient Economy, and we're thrilled you're joining us today for our International Scorecard webinar, Energy Efficient Economies Around the World Taking Stock. I also want to thank you very much for those of you who had intended to join us in person at the U.S. Capitol building. Due to weather, we have moved this to an entirely online event, and thank you again for understanding. So we have a terrific lineup today for our briefing on the International Scorecard, and I am thrilled to have an opportunity to help kick us off today. So as we open, I would like to just say thank you to our sponsor. Our sponsor for the International Scorecard in our event today is Daikin US, and who we'll hear from in 1 minute. But a few words of context as we begin. Energy efficiency is a critical resource for today's growing global economy. With energy demand rising rapidly, the efficient use of every electron and BTU helps countries, companies, and households manage energy cost and reduce strain on our existing energy infrastructure. Yet globally, we are not where we had intended to be when we set the Global Sustainable Development Goals, or for those countries that had pledged to double the rate of energy efficiency improvement at their climate negotiations in 2023. That goal would have entailed reaching a 4% annual improvement in energy efficiency, and globally we're around 1.8%. The good news is that there are a variety of strategies and approaches that can help countries adapt and adopt technologies into their portfolios that reduce their energy consumption while continuing to grow their economic paths. So our ACEEE International Energy Efficiency Scorecard documents the policies and actions of the top 25 energy consuming countries around the world. This scorecard we have produced since 2012, and I can tell you that there has been tremendous progress. The technologies are available, and the practices and policies can integrate those and deploy those technologies at scale. So today we're going to look at this as an opportunity for policymakers and businesses to celebrate progress and to examine the opportunities to build more effective markets and deliver energy efficiency improvements. I'm going to turn now for a few words from our sponsor, and then we'll get started with the scorecard results, followed by a panel of 3 leading experts. Let's get started. Charlie McCrudden, welcome. You as the Director of Government Affairs at Daikin US since 2016. I know your experience has really brings to bear how companies can build global markets for efficient products and services. Your experience with the Air Conditioning Contractors of America and as a legislative aide at the U.S. House of Representatives can bring together all of those elements that can make us successful in deploying technology. So Charlie, over to you and Daikin. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I want to thank you for the nice introduction. I want to welcome everyone to today's proceedings and thank ACEEE for allowing Daikin to make these introductory remarks. Daikin is proud to be the sponsor of the congressional briefing on energy efficient economies around the world taking stock. I think this is the 3rd or 4th of our sponsorships over the last few years of the scorecard. Daikin is a global provider of efficient and advanced HVACR equipment. At Daikin, we manufacture products under each letter in that well-known acronym: heating, air conditioning, ventilation, and refrigeration. Next slide, please. I think it's appropriate that Daikin is here today at the briefing looking at global efficiencies. Daikin recently celebrated its 100th anniversary. We have more than 100,000 employees, and we produce where we sell. Daikin products are sold in 170 countries, and we have 133 production bases across the globe. We proudly invest nearly $1 billion annually at 59 global R&D facilities. Next slide. As more parts of the world seek cooling and as energy use continues to rise, Daikin looks to lead with solutions for our global energy challenges. Our mission is to mitigate the impacts of energy consumption through our core technologies and open innovation. We hope our energy-efficient products help countries and regions meet their efficiency, emissions, and comfort goals. Next slide. Daikin's three core technologies are heat pumps, inverter compressors, and the low GWP refrigerant R32. Each of these technologies are widely used around the world, but less so in the United States, and we're trying to change that. Next slide, please. Heat pumps provide efficient and reliable heating and cooling, using only a small amount of electricity. Heat pumps absorb heat using refrigerants, and the refrigerants move that heat out of the home in the summertime or into the home in the wintertime. And while this may seem like magic to find heat from cold air, as long as the refrigerant is colder than the outside air, it can absorb heat to be distributed inside the house. Now, heat pumps are 3 to 5 times more efficient when compared to natural gas furnaces at providing heat, and provide reliable heating and cooling even in cold climates, which I think is especially apt today. Next slide, please. Inverter compressors save energy by limiting wasted operation in air conditioners and heat pumps by efficiently controlling the motor speed. Conventional compressors will run at one speed, full bore when in use, or off. An inverter can find the right speed to match the heating and cooling requirements, saving energy and promoting better humidity control. Inverter heat pumps have lower annual operating costs with improved performance by controlling the compressor speed, precisely matching the needs of the load. Inverters also help avoid the costly use of wasteful backup or electric strip heating when we face the type of weather we are seeing across the eastern United States right now. Next slide. Inverters save energy, lower utility bills, are quieter, have a smaller footprint with lower material costs, can use less refrigerant, and can provide the same comfort when the grid is at peak load. Next slide. R32 is part of the next generation of refrigerants in use today. It is an efficient, low GWP refrigerant that's easy to use, easier to reclaim, and is already in use in more than 370 million units across the globe. Now, in the United States, we are just entering the transition to low GWP refrigerants. And R32 is an important transition, is important to that transition and helping us meet the needs within the United States. Next slide. Daikin has more than 25,000 employees in the United States across 25 manufacturing plants, 9 R&D facilities, and we have more than 400 equipment distribution locations in all 50 states. We are the largest manufacturer of air conditioning equipment in the world, and we are the largest manufacturer of air filters and air filtration equipment in the world. We are committed to fostering a better future for everyone, from businesses to consumers and then to society. Next. Next slide after this. Oops, this slide here shows all of our locations across the United States. The ones that are in blue are our production facilities, and you can see that we have a significant locations in Minnesota where we have our commercial refrigeration equipment, down in Houston where we have our residential and light commercial equipment, and then throughout the country where we have 9 manufacturing locations for air filters, 1 in South Carolina for commercial refrigeration equipment, and then we have facilities in Alabama, Pennsylvania, New York, and Arizona as well. Next slide. Okay, I want to showcase our Office of our Daikin Sustainability and Innovation Center, which is located at 17th and Pennsylvania Northwest, across from the White House. We call it the DSIC, and it's not a showroom to sell you a heat pump or low GWP refrigerants. It's a showroom to sell you on the idea of and the benefits of heat pumps and low GWP refrigerants. We even have a cold chamber display where we can operate the outdoor units of a heat pump in a space as low as 8 degrees Fahrenheit, while still producing 100-degree Fahrenheit air on the inside. We welcome visitors to the DSIC anytime, feel free to reach out to me about a tour or schedule a tour at northamerica-daikin.com. That's North America, one word, -Daikin, spelled DAIKIN.com. Next slide. And I just want to make a note about our investments in the United States. This is the Daikin Texas Technology Park, our flagship factory located outside of Houston, Texas. It was a $500 million investment and was the second largest manufacturing plant in the United States, second only to Boeing's Everett facility when it opened back in 2017. It is where Daikin manufactures our residential, light commercial, and commercial furnaces, central air conditioners, heat pumps, and VRV equipment. Today, more than 10,000 employees are at the DTTP on any given day. Next slide. And lastly, if you are a baseball fan, you should know that as of last year, the Houston Astros now play their games at Daikin Park. We are proud of this partnership with the Astros and the greater Houston community. Next. Again, thank you, Jennifer, for the opportunity to make these opening remarks, and I'm looking forward to the briefing presentations this morning.
Thank you, Charlie. And I'm eager to sign up for a tour of the Daikin Sustainability Innovation Center, so I will be seeing you very soon. Next, we'll turn to the scorecard itself. Let me introduce my two colleagues at ACEEE, Jasmine Ma, a senior research analyst at ACEEE and the lead author of the International Energy Efficiency Scorecard, and Stephen Nadell, the senior fellow who was the former executive director of ACEEE, and we're thrilled to have the two of them here to walk us through this year's results. So Jasmine, over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer, for that introduction, and thank you, Charlie, for that presentation earlier and for sponsoring this project and this webinar. Hello, everyone. My name is Jasmine Ma, and I was the lead author of ACEEE's 2025 International Energy Efficiency Scorecard. ACEEE publishes multiple scorecard reports. They evaluate cities, states, and in this case, countries on how well they are reducing energy waste. The International Scorecard gets published every 3 to 4 years, with the previous edition coming out in 2022. So the scorecard aims to rank the top 25 highest energy consuming countries on their energy efficiency policies and performance. It's divided into 4 chapters: national efforts, buildings, industry, and transportation. Each chapter is worth 25 points, so a country could earn up to 100 points. And countries could earn points if they have certain policies in place, such as efficiency standards for consumer appliances, or if they achieve certain performance outcomes, like percentage of trips taken by public transit. The scorecard's meant to inspire friendly competition between countries, using commonly available data to make comparisons across countries that otherwise have very different political and social and economic contexts. Countries that score highly can use it to highlight their notable actions and outcomes and to celebrate their achievements, while countries that score on the lower end can look to the scorecard to identify opportunities for advancing national level energy efficiency and also to learn best practices from the leaders. I will say, though, that every country, even the top scoring countries, can do more to improve. The scorecard, countries could earn up to 100 points maximum in the scorecard, and even the top ranking countries did not get close to that. So stay tuned for some recommendations. Here were the top 25 countries that consume the most energy in 2022, according to data from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. This list is almost identical to the countries that were evaluated in the previous scorecard, with one notable exception. Malaysia replaces the Netherlands because the Netherlands managed to reduce its energy use so significantly between 2018 and 2022 that it's no longer one of the top energy users, so it was not studied in the scorecard. Here are summaries of the 4 chapters. The National Efforts chapter looked at how countries are prioritizing energy efficiency in their national policies and also in terms of their investments. One key metric that we studied was changes in energy intensity. We were specifically measuring unit of energy consumption over unit of economic output or unit of GDP, basically trying to estimate how how much energy does a country need to develop its economy? Lower energy intensity is better. And energy intensity was a common theme throughout the scorecard, like the buildings chapter measured energy intensity from residential buildings and commercial buildings. And the industry chapter looked at energy intensity from the industrial sector as a whole and also the agricultural sector specifically. The buildings chapter looked at energy efficient building codes to inspire energy efficient new construction, as well as building retrofit policies to improve the energy performance of existing buildings, which is especially important because a lot of buildings that exist today will still be here in 2050, which is the year that many countries have set decarbonization targets. This was the highest scoring chapter overall, with an average score being about 16.6 out of 25 points. The industry chapter looked at how countries are doing, looked at what countries are doing to improve the efficiency of their industrial operations. And it also measured whether countries have standards for industrial equipment, such as motors and fans. A lot of European and East Asian countries scored very highly in this one. And then finally, we have the transportation chapter, which looked at how countries are moving away from single occupancy fossil fuel powered vehicles and encouraging more sustainable methods of transportation, as well as deploying electric vehicles. This was the lowest scoring chapter overall. Average score was only 8.5 out of 25 points. So even countries that scored well in the other three chapters could really do a lot more to make their transportation systems more sustainable. And one of the example metrics was electric vehicle sales share and tracking what percentage of new vehicles are electric vehicles. And without further ado, here are the results of the 2025 International Energy Efficiency Scorecard. As you can see from the top 10, many of the leaders were European countries or East Asian countries, and the rest of the map is much more varied. I want to highlight the United States as ranking 11th. This is actually down one place from the 2022 scorecard when the US ranked 10th. And here are some results. Here's some more about the overall results. France was our top ranking country. It earned 85.5 out of 100 points. This is France's second time in a row placing first, as it also earned first place in the 2022 report. Second place went to Germany. Third place was the United Kingdom. Fourth place went to Italy. And then China and Spain tied for fifth, with China being the most improved country, largely due to performance outcomes like large percentage of people using public transit or extensive electric vehicle deployment. Many of the European countries ranked highly due to common policies that applied to all member states, such as the Energy Efficiency Directive, which emphasized an efficiency first principle to achieving energy savings across multiple sectors, and also the European Green Deal, which requires member states to submit energy and climate plans to describe how they will achieve EU-wide climate goals. Many of the countries that ranked lower had limited available data. Either we couldn't find information readily available online, or our contacts in other countries weren't able to supply us with adequate data. So basically, no data meant no points. And here are some general recommendations that all countries, even the top countries, can follow. First, we recommend countries reducing energy intensity nationally and across specific sectors, whether it's through buildings, in industry, or in the agricultural sector, for example. One way to accomplish this is by setting a national target to reduce energy intensity. Currently, China and South Korea are the only countries that have targets to reduce national energy consumption and national energy intensity. Most other countries only have one goal in place, and a few have neither goal in place. Then we recommend actions to reduce vehicle miles traveled or vehicle kilometers traveled. Again, we want to get people out of single occupancy fossil fuel powered vehicles and onto public transit or onto bicycles or also onto their feet. We also want to encourage walking and pedestrian infrastructure. But with regards to public transit, Italy, France, and the United Kingdom are the only countries that invest more in rail transit versus road infrastructure, demonstrating how they're prioritizing high-quality transit. And in terms of investments, we also recommend greater investments in energy efficiency programs, specifically building retrofit programs that make indoor environments more comfortable and also help residents save on their utility bills, and also research to promote energy efficient technologies and spur more advanced technological innovations. Spain was the leader in terms of national energy efficiency investments on an annual per capita basis, and Canada was the top country in terms of energy efficiency research and development, again on an annual per capita basis. So that's about all I have for general recommendations. I will now turn things over to my colleague Steve Nadell, who can speak more to the U.S. policy context and provide more specific recommendations for the U.S.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Jasmine. Yes, I wanted to briefly, with just 2 slides, talk about the U.S. This is a congressional briefing. What are some areas of strength? What are some opportunities for improvement? In terms of strength, the U.S. has the Energy Star program that helps recognize efficient products and efficient buildings. A number of other countries have started using Energy Star, so that's a real strength of us. We're also one of the leaders on energy efficiency R&D. We ranked 4th behind Canada, Spain, and France. We have a long history of investing in energy efficiency and other types of energy R&D, often through our national laboratories. We've been a leader in low-income weatherization. The U.S. Weatherization Assistance Program, the WAP program, goes back to the Ford administration in 1976 and is a strength. We are one of 12 countries earning top points because there was limited data, but I think if we had better data, the U.S. would be much better than one of the top 12. We've really done a lot, and I know a number of other countries have tried to learn from what we do there. With equipment efficiency standards, U.S. is one of 10 countries earning maximum points, along with many of the European countries, as well as China. And another strength of the U.S. is utility efficiency programs, where we spend approximately $8 billion a year, although spending does vary by state. The graph on the right shows how the energy savings from the utility programs. You could see it's been steadily increasing due to those investments. Next. Now, there are places the U.S. can do more. Building codes for new construction vary very much from state to state, but in general are decent but not great. Many of the European codes, for example, require near zero levels of energy, meaning they produce almost as much energy as they use and are highly efficient. Building retrofit policies and programs are things that we can learn from other countries. France, Germany, Italy, and the UK lead on that. All have some excellent examples, and we'll hear in a few minutes about France, for example. US is one of 11 countries in the next tier. And I'd also note home energy ratings when homes and apartments are listed. These are required in Europe and Australia, as well as a few US cities. On the right, you can see a label from the city of Portland, Oregon, which rates homes on a 1 to 10 scale. This one is a 4 rating, so okay, but not great. But home energy ratings have been shown through independent economic research to reduce mortgage default rates, spur home upgrades, and increase the sales price of efficient homes. So these are a few things that the U.S. can do, perhaps via Congress, often via states or localities. With that, let me turn it back to Jennifer to kick us off on the next stage of our webinar.
Thank you, Jasmine. Thank you, Steve. And for those of you who have questions regarding the findings, we've put the address for you to download the report into the content here. And also, please do use the Q&A if you'd like to follow up on a specific point that you heard from either Jasmine or Steve on the scorecard itself. But in order to have a broader conversation about what does this mean and what are we seeing in the sectors that are where we saw the scoring and the improvements occurring, we've asked a panel of esteemed thought leaders and researchers to join us to have a discussion in today's event. So those of you who would like to connect with us in a discussion context, we're going to do that following the presentations and overviews that our three panelists will provide. So let me introduce the three of them, and then we'll take them in order. Karine Sebi is an associate professor at Grenoble École de Management. Professor Sebi specializes in energy efficiency evaluation with a focus on buildings and studies the impact of new energy services, reconciling business attractiveness and the acceptability of new services by citizens. The second panelist is Jeff Risman, a senior director for industry at Energy Innovation. There, he leads the company's work on technologies and policies to eliminate greenhouse gas emissions from the industrial sector. And he's authored several books on industrial energy, as well as serving as the vice chair for the U.S. Department of Energy's Industrial Technology Innovation Advisory Committee. Our third panelist, Tim Dahlman, is the Global Programs Director at the International Council on Clean Transportation, ICCT. He leads multilateral initiatives working to hasten the global transition to zero-emission vehicles, including international alliances for zero-emissions vehicles and a transition council. So, Corinne, we'll start with you, and congratulations to France as this year's top country on energy efficiency efforts. Corinne, please.
Thank you very much, Jennifer, and thanks a lot, ACEEE colleagues, for putting together such a scoreboard. Without measurement, we cannot understand where we stand nor where we must go. So thank you for this scoreboard and for giving me the opportunity to present France's building sector energy efficiency policies. So yeah, France's top ranking in the ACEEE scoreboard is not accidental. And I would like to highlight the three pillars that explain our performance in building sector. First, France has made retrofitting a true national priority. We have moved beyond voluntary approaches by implementing strong regulatory measures, including banning the rental of the worst performing dwellings unless they are retrofitted. This policy surprised, I remember, many international colleagues when it was introduced, yet it has since inspired other regions like in Belgium, Flanders intend to implement it starting from 2030. We require as well large buildings to meet energy performance targets, particularly in the service sector, and the French government provides financial incentives for replacing heating systems, improving building envelopes, and progressively phasing out fossil fuels in building. Second, France has invested heavily in consistent, transparent policies. For instance, the energy performance certificate now plays a central role in real estate transactions, rental markets, and renovation decisions. France was the first EU countries to make this instrument widespread and binding in 2006. This matters because clarity builds trust. Landlords, tenants, and professionals, they need stability to engage in retrofitting decisions that require long-term investment. And third, the scorecard reminds us a crucial fact that Jasmine already said. Most of the buildings that will exist in 2050 already exist today. France's policies explicitly recognize this reality by targeting particularly the existing stock. So that was the bright side of the force. Now let me take you to the darker side and be very clear. Ranking near the top doesn't mean the job is done. In fact, the situation today is delicate. France has faced and still is facing recently policy instability with stop-and-go dynamics in residential retrofit support schemes. Budget cuts have been proposed for renovation program, including reduction to MaPrimeRénov', our flagship national program that is today frozen. These shifts risk undermining the very momentum that explains France's strong performance in this scoreboard. This is not only a climate or energy issue. It's also, and it has been said already beforehand, a health and comfort issue. More than a third of French households face fuel poverty. Poor insulation contributes to respiratory disease, excess winter mortality, and growing stress during summer. Deep retrofit is therefore preventive health policy with the potential to avoid thousands of premature deaths and save billions in public health costs. It is also about energy security and public finances. Buildings account for over 40% of the country of national energy consumption, much of it still linked to fossil fuel, imported fossil fuels. And during the recent energy crisis, our national energy import bill exceeded 100 billion euro in a single year. Every euro invested in efficient buildings reduces exposure to volatility and geopolitical risk. And lastly, renovation supports nearly 2 million jobs in France, jobs that cannot be offshore. Deep renovation generates local economic activity, tax revenue, and long-term value creation. But these benefits depend on a stable, predictable, and ambitious policy framework. When rules change, trust erodes. So yeah, France may deserve its top spot in the ACEEE scoreboard, but this leadership is fragile, and staying ahead will require steady investment, long-term planning, and strong political commitment to ensure that energy-efficient buildings continue to support climate action, social equity, public health, and energy sovereignty. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And some of those themes I think we'll return to in our discussion portion. So thank you for that. Jeff, over to you to talk a little about the industrial transition and energy efficiency.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. And also thank you, Jasmine and Steve, for the opportunity to be here and share some information about industrial energy efficiency. So I'm the Senior Director of the Industry Program at Energy Innovation, a clean energy and climate policy think tank. I'm also the Vice Chair of the US DOE's Industrial Technology Innovation Advisory Committee. And I'm the author of a recent new book, Zero Carbon Industry, published by Columbia University Press, about the technologies that can lead to industrial decarbonization and the policies that can get them deployed and scaled up. You can learn more about the book at zerocarbonindustry.com. Energy efficiency is cost effective. It means using less energy to produce the same products, the same quality industrial products and materials. It saves money for US manufacturers as well as for buyers of those products and materials. And it cuts pollutant emissions, which reduces US deaths, diseases, and climate impacts. Industrial energy efficiency still has significant uncaptured potential. The DOE estimated that US efficiency could improve by 2.4% per year, and the International Energy Agency found that using all cost-effective efficiency measures, that is, based on energy savings alone, using only readily available technology, could achieve a global improvement of 2.3% per year through 2040. So a similar estimated improvement rate. Industrial energy efficiency really exists at three scales. People often think of only the first scale initially, individual pieces of equipment, like an efficient boiler or an efficient electric motor. But there are also efficiency measures you can take at the level of an entire facility or manufacturing line, how machines are interconnected and how the system is optimized. And then there are decisions that are made beyond the factory that impact energy efficiency, like supply chain management and product design. So some examples. At the equipment scale, you could use remanufactured parts or recycled materials, which saves energy on creating new steel or new materials from raw inputs. For smaller production runs, techniques like 3D printing or incremental forming can avoid the need to create custom tooling like molds and dies, which can be energy and material intensive. You can use more forming processes like casting and forging, and fewer machining processes like drilling and grinding, because machining processes remove material and waste material. You can also properly optimize boiler operation and maintain boilers, among other strategies. At the facility scale, an important technique is to right-size the equipment for the load. So don't have an overly large motor or boiler relative to the amount of load that the machine will experience. And you can spread load out over time to reduce peak load and allow you to install smaller machines. You can use geothermal heat or direct solar heat, reducing the amount of energy one needs to purchase. You can use efficient fluid distribution, meaning pipes that are properly sized and well insulated, for example, for steam distribution. And then there's automation. So for example, using a robot for welding or paint application. A robot can apply the welds much more quickly than a human, which means the welding torch has to be active for fewer seconds per product, which saves energy. Then beyond the factory, you can choose supply chains, suppliers that are themselves more energy efficient and that reduce transport energy use. You can design products in a way that makes them easy to manufacture. And as a business, you can adopt decision-making approaches that appropriately value energy efficiency. Well, quick note on electrification. It does improve energy efficiency by a large degree. That's because there's no heat loss in hot exhaust gases or formed water vapor, which you get when you combust materials. Industrial heat pumps, as we heard earlier today, can also improve energy efficiency, even beyond other electrified technologies. And when paired with clean electricity, it's a crucial way to cut industrial emissions. Since electrification largely eliminates this waste heat, investments in waste heat recovery or CHP on fossil fuel burning equipment might not be compatible with a future pathway to clean industry and risk becoming stranded assets. So consider investing in electrification instead. On my last slide, I have some policy recommendations. So these are different approaches to help encourage industrial energy efficiency. They include voluntary energy performance agreements with equipment manufacturers, incentivizing or mandating plant energy audits to identify energy saving opportunities, incentivizing the use of energy management systems to monitor and control energy flows, minimum energy performance standards for electrical equipment like motors, heat pumps, furnaces, and so forth. And lastly, a set of policies aimed at industrial electrification. Electrification relies on inexpensive renewable electricity or zero emission electricity, so accelerating deployment of low-cost renewables and interconnection is valuable, as well as green public procurement programs for industrial products and materials produced with electricity, emission standards for industrial equipment, and national electrification targets. Thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you today, and I look forward to the Q&A.
Thank you, Jeff. We will return to some of these points. Tim, over to you to share with us a bit about the transportation agenda.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you to ACEEE to the invitation to participate in the webinar here today. For those of you who are not familiar with the International Council on Clean Transportation, we are a nonprofit research organization that works globally to support regulators and policymakers to develop better approaches to improve the environmental performance of transportation sources. So just to make the connection back to the discussion here today on efficiency, I wanted to start with just how important efficiency standards have been to improving the performance of on-road vehicles around the world. So this is a plot that ICT maintains looking at either fuel economy or CO2 emission standards that have been adopted in markets around the world and how those are developing over time. I mean, you can see here, many markets around the world have adopted these standards that are setting long-term trajectories to improving the efficiency of, in this case, passenger cars. They're shown here. We're seeing markets like Canada, the EU, and UK set targets that are approaching zero emissions, so really driving that long-term decarbonization of the on-road transportation sector. We're also seeing a broadening geographically of where these regulations are being implemented, seeing more emerging markets like India, Mexico, and Brazil start to adopt these really foundational standards for improving the efficiency of on-road vehicles. One outlier I'll note here, you can see the line in the top is showing the US reflecting the recent proposal from the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to reduce the requirements for the US CAFE standards. So you can see this proposal would set the US back quite significantly relative to other markets around the world. It's not just efficiency standards for internal combustion engine vehicles that are really driving improvements in the on-road sector. It's really this long-term trajectory towards zero-emission vehicles, which are about 80% more efficient than comparable internal combustion engine vehicles, and are the technology pathway for the road transportation sector that will lead to deep decarbonization over time. So as of today, more than 30 countries around the world have committed to achieving 100% zero-emission vehicle sales in the 2035 to 2040 timeframe. These commitments are really driving long-term ambition and setting long-term pathways towards electrification for the road transport sector. And that's really kind of being paired with quite a rapid market development for electric vehicles around the world. In the last 10 years, we've seen a 20-fold increase in EV sales around the globe. This is largely being led by China and the EU. We can see here in the bar graph, China in red and the EU in blue, making up the majority of those sales over time. But importantly to note that we're seeing in recent years other markets around the globe starting to increase their participation in the EV market, and we're seeing EV sales share grow in countries that are quickly catching up to the markets that started the EV transition a little bit earlier. Another important point to make here is that in that same time frame, non-EV sales, the sales of internal combustion engines, have declined by more than 20% since their peak. And as I said, kind of this EV transition is really from kind of what we're seeing at the ICT, broadening globally, broadening geographically. So China is still the leader, along with some of the Nordic countries like Norway, Denmark, and Sweden, not shown in the graph. But what I wanted to point out here is really the growth in a lot of the emerging markets around the world in the last year or 2 years. So we're seeing like countries like Vietnam and Thailand exceed 20 or 30% new vehicle sales being EVs. We're also seeing countries like Indonesia and Colombia getting close to 10% new vehicle sales being EVs in 2025, and surpassing markets like the US and approaching where the EU is at right now. Even countries like South Africa, India, Brazil with lower EV sales percentages are also seeing rapid growth. So they're starting from a lower baseline, but still seeing rapid exponential growth as they're starting to develop those markets. And that growth, kind of the emerging EV markets, is being driven by a variety of different policy factors, with the commonality that a lot of the most effective policies that we're seeing adopted around the world are really effective in reducing the cost of owning and operating EV. So we've seen over and over again that if it's economic for consumers to purchase an EV and to operate that EV over its lifetime, they are consistently choosing to go the electric pathway. So policies like California's sales requirements or purchase incentives, or Norway's tax incentives for EVs, are really effective in driving down those costs and making EVs easier to choose for consumers. Places like China, we're seeing kind of industrial incentives being a key driver for EV growth. And in Vietnam, a lot of the sales growth is driven by government incentives and the presence of a domestic manufacturer that has really invested heavily in EV production. So just in closing, to wrap up here, sorry if I go back one slide. So EVs, the EV transition is not slowing down. So in 2025, we saw about 1 in 4 new vehicle sales worldwide were electric. EV sales are increasing in all major markets, and especially, as I noted, in emerging markets where we're seeing very rapid growth in the EV market. Prices continue to fall as batteries improve, cost of batteries decrease, and overall technology progression is being made. Again, that will be really important as we move forward to continue to make that economic case for consumers to choose EVs. And that market development can be strongly supported by effective policies that create that long-term confidence for governments, fleets, charging companies, and other stakeholders to move together towards a zero-emission vehicle future. So with that, I will thank everyone for their attention and turn it back over to Jennifer.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Corinne. It's wonderful to have this broad view of the different tools, tactics, policies that are being used in different countries to advance energy efficiency at a sectoral basis. And I noted we have several questions in both the webinar chat and in the Q&A portion. Let me just offer a few of those questions to our panelists and to the scorecard team. And let's start with a question specifically on sort of the budgetary constraints, because I see that two of the questions really touch on this around the budgetary constraints that France is experiencing and how that plays out in the developing country context, where there may even be more limited opportunities for incentives or support. And let me we'll have Corinne jump in there. But a second question that came in is also, recognizing that at a time of rapid growth, we do have opportunities to still help support the energy economy through conservation, alternative energy supplies and options. And I'd like to open that question up for all three of our panelists to offer their reflections. And finally, the role of utilities and the role of utilities in helping advance a country's energy efficiency. So let me open it up for comments from the panelists and from our ACEEE colleagues. Corinne, would you like to kick off?
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer. So I won't have an overview about what's happening in France compared to other developing countries. But what is currently happening in France is a budget cut in all sectors, and we have been waiting for months, and we are still waiting to a new project law. And until it is not voted at the Assembly, we have no budget in any kind of measures, and it includes public measures, and it includes, of course, energy efficiency in buildings. But the problem is that there we only see this as a cost and not taking into account the co-benefits that I highlighted during my short speech. And another comment is that the French government is updating and reviewing the ongoing and the current programs. I mentioned the MaPrimeRénov' that is stopped today because of the waiting of this law to be adopted, but it has been revised to target it towards the lower income, which is good to avoid any free riding effects. And it is also targeting deep retrofitting, which is again a good direction, and compared to financing only one measure, like only financing the replacement of windows without replacing the heating or the cooling systems.
Great. Now let me open up with regards to the role of utilities in helping countries advance their energy efficiency agendas and questions associated with energy security and opportunities for energy efficiency to help support energy security and national interest in increasing the supply of energy in the US and elsewhere. See, Tim, do you want to speak to this from the perspective of transportation? Clearly, fuel security is a...
Yeah, I can jump in. Yeah, I mean, I think that is especially a strong driver for a lot of oil importing countries to make the transition to electrification. We're seeing places like Ethiopia made a decision to ban new imports of internal combustion engine vehicles, primarily as an energy security decision. So when EVs are paired with renewables and domestic production of electricity that is fueling vehicles, it's a very good solution for countries who are in that position of now being primarily oil importing countries. And on the role of utilities for the vehicle electrification discussion will be and are already a key stakeholder in building out the charging networks that will be needed, especially for heavy duty vehicles. Utilities will be an important player in helping to drive the networks that will be needed to electrify heavy duty fleets and continue to provide charging for light duty vehicles and home charging that many people are using today.
Jeff, on the industrial side, would you like to chime in there?
Sure. So, energy security, or ensuring you have access to energy for industry, is important for countries and for the industrial sector, because countries care about ensuring that their manufacturing base can operate uninterrupted. It's an important source of jobs, materials, and national security implications. One great way to do that is through electrification. Many countries have to import some of their fossil fuels, especially gas and oil, and whereas electricity is often generated within country, and it can be a more reliable supply. If you're deploying renewables, solar panels, wind turbines, for that matter, nuclear, these plants don't need to either ever buy fuel, or in the case of nuclear, very rarely buy fuel. So even if you have to import the solar panel, it will then operate for 20 or 30 years, providing clean, secure electricity. And that provides a level of energy security that is hard to beat. So I would say industrial electrification is a key way to contribute to supply chain and critical material and industrial security.
Yeah, that's important. And in the chat, I note there are different utilities managed for the engagement with distributed energy resources and the opportunities for demand response, demand flexibility, integration of those different assets into their grid, all of which can improve the flexibility associated with a system and gives an incentive for individuals, businesses, homeowners to think differently about the consumption and production side of this, which can improve the efficiency of the system overall and improve the efficiency of the economy. But really, many utilities are continuing to build out their approaches to trying to take forward new business models. And of course, that's where policy is so critical and where investment needs to be taken forward. So we're tracking on the policy side, as well as the practices and business side, how different countries can do that. But I did want to actually ask if Charlie could join us for a moment, because there is this is something obviously where a business voice is incredibly helpful to be part of that conversation. And we have a question directed, I believe, specifically to you, Charlie, which is how do networked devices help provide demand side management strategies that the utilities and others could benefit from?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's it's an area that more and more people are sort of becoming aware of. And at Daikin, we're very much into the inverter products. And as I mentioned during my presentation, inverters offer the ability to work very, very well with demand response. So when you have a peak time coming, oftentimes the utility is letting people know that we've got peak load because it's very, very hot, it's very, very cold. And with the inverter products that we produce, the consumer almost doesn't even recognize or realize that maybe they've been dialed back. And that's because the inverter is the ability to find that perfect speed without really compromising the comfort that they'll experience. So for Daikin, that's where we see the real opportunities. I also think, though, that in the United States, we're becoming much more aware and much more there's more recognition of these opportunities. And I think that you'll see from the HVAC industry, maybe not so much transportation or the industrial side, is that this is where there are opportunities. I joke that our industry, we used to make dumb boxes that made hot or cold air. We don't do that anymore. We make very sophisticated technologies now, because building owners, commercial building owners, but now homeowners are looking for that edge, looking for that way that helps them save. And I think we're slowly seeing people recognize this and ask for these types of products. I hope that answered the question.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I think that's a really good, again, efficiency can happen at an individual product level. It can happen in a neighborhood level or at a utility level. It can happen at a much broader economic level. And those are all very important areas to consider as part of our efficiency agenda. I noticed another question in the chat or the Q&A around the transportation side and these kind of modal shifts that can improve efficiency, and the fact that we have competing investments going into different parts of the system, with some consumers benefiting by certain types of actions and others not as much. But Tim, I'm wondering if you'd like to take a look at that question in our Q&A portion and respond there. But let me turn, before we go to you, Tim, really quickly, let me turn to Steve and Jasmine to see if there are other questions that have come up in the chat with regards to the scorecards data and analysis that we should be sure to chime in on.
I will say, with regards to utility investments, that was a data point that we couldn't find in all countries. So either many of the countries in the scorecard, their utilities are not actively investing in energy efficiency programs, or the data that tracks their investments in energy efficiency is not publicly available. So again, that goes back to, we couldn't award countries points if they simply didn't have data available. So if you have data available, please share it with us when we release a new scorecard, either in 2028 or 2029.
I would just add that in the US, much of the spending is by utilities. In a lot of other countries, it's more by government. The utilities spend, but often not as much. Some countries have what are called white certificates. The utilities do get involved, but US is relatively unique in putting much of the emphasis on utility programs. And to answer your question, Jennifer, I'd also want to briefly comment about home energy ratings. So far in the US, they have been done at the local level. I think there's great opportunity to move it at the state level, because many people do not look in just one community, but look in the general metropolitan area, and it's helpful to have at least at the state level. Ultimately, many of the European countries, Australia, have done at the national level, but this is the type of thing that the US Congress usually shies away from, because it tends to be more local or state control.
Thanks, Steve and Jasmine. Tim, to you.
Yeah, just recognizing the short time here, I think this is a question that maybe deserves a longer conversation, but just quickly, I think there's a lot of great organizations that have done a lot of work to provide evidence of the societal benefits of shifts to things like public transportation or active mobility. We don't do much of that work ourselves at the ICCT, but I can refer you to others who are active in that area. And I think for owners of internal combustion engine vehicles, kind of making the switch to EVs, I think, is really about the economics. So as soon as kind of that price parity comes, which is expected in the coming years, I think EVs will be a good choice for a lot of consumers based on a lot of the benefits they provide, both on the performance side as well as the environmental side.
Thank you, Tim. We're going to move now to have Steve offer a few closing remarks. But before I do, I did want to note that there is a note in the chat on AI and the impact AI has on data center load, as well as on the opportunity for us to think at a systems level around energy improvement and energy demand associated with artificial intelligence and data centers. ACEEE will have a paper coming out on this within the next few weeks. And so please stay tuned and watch your emails. Steve, over to you to offer closing thoughts. Thank you so much, everyone.
Okay, since this is a congressional briefing, I wanted to comment a little bit on what Congress can do. This is not to say there are not lots of great ideas coming out of France, or that Jeff and Tim talked about broader. But in the US, with the current Congress, I wanted to focus on some of the things that might be possible, as opposed to things that would be longer term. That's things like continue funding for the Weatherization, Energy Star, and Home Energy Rebates program. When I prepared this slide a couple of weeks ago, it wasn't clear, but fortunately the DOE and EPA appropriations have passed, so Congress has done that. Thank you. There's a lot of interest in housing and some potential bills there. I think we need to recognize that energy efficiency is one way to reduce the monthly cost of housing. On average in the US, the energy bill is the second highest cost of homeownership after the mortgage payment. Industry, Jeff talked about quite a few things that we could do, but I think where there might be some bipartisan interest is how do we promote some of the advanced energy-saving technologies that will be important for domestic job creation and international competitiveness. Also, how do we expand domestic processing of rare earths and other critical minerals that are needed to produce so many of these products? In transportation, we have a transportation bill that is potentially coming up this year. The current transportation bill expires. We'll see whether they can reach bipartisan agreement to reenact or renew it, or whether that will get pushed to the next year or next Congress. But there are things dealing with how do we reduce passenger and freight miles traveled, reduce congestion and the amount of energy we need to move those vehicles. How do we do managed charging? So for electric trucks and cars, really encourage charging at nighttime, off-peak, so it doesn't contribute to peak demand, and in fact can help reduce the energy prices because off-peak, if you make greater use of off-peak, you help spread some of the fixed costs better. How do we do workforce development for truck drivers and technicians, particularly on some of the new advanced vehicles? A lot of current repair people are getting ready to retire. We need that next generation. And then smart ports is another growing area. And then probably not for this next Congress, but I would note that we did have some very effective tax credit programs for new homes and home retrofits. They were repealed, but I'm hoping, but they were quite effective. I'm hoping that in the future Congress, maybe they can be restored. But many other ideas that Jasmine, Jeff, and Tim provided. Lots of things for Congress to do, lots of things for states and localities to do to build on this. And I would just note that there are additional questions in the Q&A, and we'll try to reply to them via email. Sorry, we didn't have enough time to answer every question. Jennifer, do you want any final wrap up here?
Just again to say thank you to Daikin for sponsoring the International Scorecard and today's congressional briefing. We're delighted to have you all here, and thank you again. Keep your eyes on this space. More to come. Thank you and goodbye.